If you've been looking to print your own 3D artworks, then you've probably heard of something called Hueforge, which is a paid software that lets you turn a 2D image into a 3D model like this. And the way it works is by separating the colors by layer. From a glance, or from looking at it straight on, it looks like all the colors are present in the same layer. They're actually split into individual layers, which lets you print multiple colors, more than 4 colors, on a regular 3D printer. But did you know there's a free alternative to Hueforge built right into Bambu Studio, which is Bambu Lab slicing software? It's called Chroma Canvas, which can be found in the Maker Lab tab of Bambu Studio. And today I'm going to show you how to use it to make your own really cool 3D artworks. And if you're new here, I'm Matt, and on this channel I cover lots of 3D printing tips, tutorials, and more. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So first things first, you need to open Bambu Studio. If you haven't downloaded it, then make sure you download it first. And then in the home screen, you'll need to go to Maker Lab, which is here, which is where you'll find Chroma Canvas, amongst other things. Like there are a bunch of different software features here, and I might cover some of them in future videos. However, the one we're looking for here is Chroma Canvas. When you click on it, as you can see, I've already we're trying to make a bunch of other stuff as well. Let's click create from blank to get started. And then it comes up with this where you can add your picture file. So you can use JPEG, PNG, or even a WebP. You can't use SVG. I thought you could use an SVG, but I guess you can't. I usually use PNGs. They just seem to work best with these Bambu softwares. I guess because they don't have the background included, so they just work better. And you can even see in the bottom right here, it says inspired by the commercial software Hueforge. And it says recommended for users seeking more professional features. Because it's a paid software, and there's more tiers the more you pay. You can get a lot more software features. I haven't actually used Hueforge because the fact it's paid, I don't feel like I need to. And as you'll see, Chroma Canvas has essentially everything you need. There probably are some extra features you could do with, but let's just get started. So I'm going to locate my file. I'm going to go with this today, which is a Greninja Pokemon card artwork. So if you're wondering where I get these artworks from, I'll just quickly show. It's from this website, which I will link in the description below. Essentially, it's really cool. It's all the trading cards from the TCG Pocket app on your phone. So these are digital cards only, but someone has removed all the text and stuff from the card. So you can see it's just the card artwork itself. And there's some really beautiful artworks in these cards. So this is really cool. I'll link this below. It's a bit of a tangent, sorry, but if you were interested in this, you can make your own using the methods I'm showing today. Anyway, back to this. So once you've got your picture loaded in, I chose this one because it's somewhat simple, but also has some extra colors in it. And click start. It'll turn it into the software ready model, I guess, and let it load. And it'll load in as black and white. So when you first load in, it'll look like this. You start in the color adjustment tab, and there are various color palettes available. So the one it defaults to is mono, which is just dark gray and white, which looks like this. Then there's a bunch of others you can check out if you want to. So there's black and white, and it tells you what filaments are in each color palette. And if you click on them, it'll take you to this where it tells you the exact ratio and percentages, how many layers of each there are, and what exact filament they're using. So because this is a Bambu software, it obviously chooses Bambu Lab filaments. So if you've got a lot of Bambu filaments or you only use that, this is really easy to match colors to. So there's a PLA basic black, PLA basic gray, and so on. And if you click on any of them, you can swap out the colors too. Again, it's all obviously Bambu filaments. It's all the matte and basic colors. I don't think it has any of the other materials. You can also find by color by searching a hex code, I guess, and it'll match it the best. Or you can search by color itself. So if I wrote green, all the ones that have green in the name, so mistletoe green and so on, pop up, which is nice and handy. And yeah, there are these other options you have here, so you can add extra filaments if you want. Interesting. You can add pink to make the moon pink, I guess. I'm going to delete that. But you can move these along to vary the color palette. So as I'm moving it towards the white, it's becoming darker because it's more dark gray, or blue gray as it's called here. If I move it the other way, it becomes lighter, which makes sense. And you can click confirm to save that if you want to make any adjustments, or just click cancel. And there is also this auto curve, which basically automatically selects the colors and the ratios that there are. I guess if you turn that off, you can do it completely manual. I'd usually leave it on because I haven't found any issues with it. I'm just going to click cancel because I don't want to save that. But yeah, you can check out the presets they've got. So there's like blues, reds. This infrared one's pretty cool. Fire one was cool. There's like beige, which is quite nice too. Anyway, you can just play around with them. You can adjust the colors, whatever you feel like doing. I'm just going to change it back to mono. I think I do actually want the background for this one to be mono. Black and white would work too, but I feel like it's too dark. So I just click on mono. So that means everything is now mono. But as you can see, there are options here for adding. So you can add a foreground. There's also background, which is the default back. So the background will be the thinnest part of the model. So whatever you set the background at is obviously the first part that prints. But you can also add a foreground and a midground. But if we click add foreground first, this is what comes up. You can select parts of the image to split, so you can add it into the foreground. So you can either do object selection where you manually do it, or you can do a color wheel where it chooses it by a color range that you set. I normally don't use color wheel. I will show it briefly, but let's try object selection first. And there is a little tutorial if you can watch again, but I didn't find it that helpful. I basically only realized how to do these things after trying them out myself. So if I click object selection and then confirm, it'll then load this page. So you can now see the whole image in this original colors, and it defaults to selecting by, it's like auto object select. So if I like hover over, you can see it's trying to like separate things into different parts. So I hover over Greninja if you are into Pokemon, if you're not, but this character here is Greninja. You can see it's selecting the whole thing quite nicely already. So if I click on that, it's now selected that whole character, which I want to isolate. And if I click anywhere else, it's probably gonna, just highlight everything. So you can undo, you can also like zoom in as well if you want, and then mouse wheel scroll to scroll around. And if you want to remove the thing you added, you can click remove on random parts. But I find the mask tool is just good for getting a good baseline for what you want to select, because it's not super smart with what it's selecting. And then you can change to paint selection to erase set areas. For instance, I want this pink, I think it's its tongue, which is weird that it wears as a scarf. But anyway, the tongue to be separate. So if I click on it, it does kind of deselect, but deselected essentially everything, which I don't want it to do. So I'm going to head over to brush selection instead. With the brush, as you can see, you can like paint more freely. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to delete that. Essentially what I'm going to do is I want to remove the pink tongue part. So I'm going to move it around like this. It doesn't have to be super accurate, really. I'm going to do the other bits separately, I guess. I probably don't need to do it so carefully. I can just increase the brush size to remove the large chunk here, like that. So I've removed the pink part from the selection. So I've got the blue selected, the tongue is deselected, and the background is completely a different selection too. So if I click finish split, it'll then split this into a separate part of the model. So this is now the foreground. The background will print first, obviously, so that's the thinnest part. Then the foreground will be raised slightly with respect to that. And you can also add a midground. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add the tongue as a separate part, and then I'll deal with all the colors and everything afterwards. So add that. So if I show you color wheel quickly, it does come up with a tutorial for that too. I'm going to skip it. Basically, you can change this range to only select colors within that range. But as you can see, it's not very smart. Like, for instance, I'm trying to select just pink, but I don't think it's very smart with how it's determining what is pink or not. Like, it's just a bit of a mess. So I don't like using the color wheel. If you can find a better way of using it, or if you're better at color selection than I am, then go for it. Maybe it's better to have like exact hex codes or something to work that out. But I prefer object selection. It's quicker and you can do it by hand, so it's easier to remove and add stuff. Yeah, so I want the tongue scarf thing. So I click there and click there. See, it's going to overdo it. So I'm going to choose this part of the tongue and then do the rest manually. So I'm going to zoom in and scroll it and then use the brush version instead to try and get the rest of the scarf tongue thing. Obviously, depending on whatever image you're using, this will vary, but I'm just trying to demonstrate the different tools. Obviously, if you do go over a bit, you can then erase it again, like if I don't want that bit. Yes, it doesn't matter that much. It doesn't have to be super accurate, just roughly. And then finish split and wait for it to load. So I've added that as the midground. You can also swap things around, so it doesn't have to be foreground, midground, background, that order. So you can drag that over. It's now swapped foreground and midground. And like I said, what that means is the pink tongue part will be the most raised part of the model, and the blue body part will be the middle, and the background will be the thin background. You can also swap those around. So I can have the character as the background if I want, and then the midground as the main part, but that doesn't make any sense to me. I think this makes more sense, the tongue being most raised. So that's with the background selected. I've got it as mono, which I'm happy with. And midground, I was going to use some kind of blue in this case. So deep blue as a preset, which looks okay. Purple blue, which is okay as well. I think ice blue. I don't know why there's so many blues, but there is. I think ice blue probably looks better than purple blue. And you can see it tells you what's in them. So it's like basic black, and then there's blue, PLA basic, and then ice blue matte, and then basic white. So it's good that it tells you. So if you happen to have those colors or you don't have them, then you can either order them in or try and find something you've got that's similar. And for the foreground, we can change it to some kind of pink. Purple pink, probably. I think there's also red. There isn't one which is just pink, but maybe we can adjust it and turn it into a different pink. So we click on here. What does hot pink look like? Basically the same, obviously. What about magenta? Magenta's a lot more pink, maybe too pink. There's also Sakura pink in the matte colors, which maybe isn't strong enough. So I guess regular pink is probably best. I don't actually have that pink though, so I probably will swap it to magenta. Maybe I should swap it to magenta. Then for purple, you can swap the purple as well. I don't have that purple either. What does it look like with indigo? Looks okay with indigo. With the other purple go, or lilac purple. Maybe indigo was better. I mean, I have a very similar purple to this. It's just not that exact shade. It's not bamboo purple. It's polymaker purple. And like I said before, you can move these to make it more pink. So if I move that way, it becomes a bit more pink. So maybe something like that, which is adjusted percentage of each color in each layer. And click confirm. And you can also edit your color selection. So if I click edit, I could now go back into it and either delete stuff or add stuff. So I do want to actually try and get the eyeball. Let's see if I can get the eyeball. I feel like it should have some contrast. I just want this bit of the eye. I don't know if that's too much anyway. I'm going to do it anyway. See what it looks like. Because I think there should be some contrast with the eye. Otherwise it looks a bit weird. See, it's a bit better. The eye is now pink. That's cool. And now because I've edited that preset, is now moved to the custom tab. You can also create palette and then make whatever you want in there. There's some other like custom ones I've got here. So I've also got this blue. Maybe that's too blue. I have that blue too. Or that purple. Oh, that's nice. I don't remember making that, but I feel like that works better for this specific thing. What if I change this to yellow? Sorry, it's getting a bit overcomplicated. Maybe that will be best. If I change this to the darker blue. Yeah, that looks better, right? I'm happy with that. Again, I could change the background color too, but I'm pretty happy with that. And there are also these like color tone and exposure and stuff. I don't really play with this much though, but this is here. So you can turn up the contrast and turn down the contrast, which is interesting. I'm just going to leave it as is. And then the color curve is like this auto curve, but you can turn that off and, you know, rearrange the colors and you can see how it's changing as I'm doing that. But I'm going to change that back to auto because I think auto is fine. So if you're happy with your colors and your color selection and splitting and everything, you can go to the size next. So by default, it chooses A1 mini. That doesn't really matter for the exporting. It just chooses which printer it exports to. But if I change it to XP and A1, because I have P1S and a A1, but you can use it on other printers too, because it exports as a 3MF file, sorry. And you can change the size, so the default is 240 by 172. That might be too big for you. I'll explain my reasoning later, but I just leave them as defaults. And you can change the thickness of the plate, which is basically the thickness of the background part. So whatever the background is set to, which in my case is the dark part, that will be 0.6 millimeters thick, and then the rest will build on that. You can change it if you want. If you want a thicker plate, you can turn it all the way up to 5, which is very thick, but you might want some really thick artwork. I can also change the cropping as well, so you can like crop it inwards and stuff. I'm not gonna do that. I think that's more useful if you've got a non-square or rectangle, in my case, image. So if you want to isolate something in particular, like I did make something that was basically a fish. I wanted it to like be more shaped to the fish, so I made it more like an oval crop. But yeah, you can play with that too, and you can change the width and height here too. And then the corner radius, you can change this too, so it's like curved. Again, I haven't used this. Maybe this could be useful though, so you don't have such sharp corners if you're using a square image like this. But in general, I haven't messed with those too much. And you can also add a hole. So you click add, it adds it, so you can like hang it on your wall. But I don't really like just hanging it through the artwork itself. So I did actually make my own frame. So I made a picture frame style and a wall art style. I'll show you in a bit. So I can hang them on the wall or put them on my desk or a shelf or something, so they look like a nice picture frame. But you can just add a hole directly if you don't mind having the hole through the image itself. I'm going to delete that though because I don't want it. But yeah, once you're happy with everything, you can go ahead and click export. Before I export it, sorry, so there are these Maker Lab credits here, which, yeah, I don't understand. They're here as if it implies you need to use them to export from Chroma Canvas, but you don't. Like, I've exported a bunch and I don't use these. I think they just have them here by default no matter what Maker Lab software you're using. So anyway, click export. It is free. You can choose your printer. But yeah, it doesn't matter which one you choose because you can just, it exports as a 3MF, so you can use it in other slices too, as long as they are compatible with 3MF files. So I'm just going to A1 or P1S are the ones I have. You can choose your nozzle size. I think it is more recommended to use 0.2 millimeter nozzle because you can get a more detailed image, but I've been using 0.4 with no real issues. There's also a sheer color palette with the community. I think if you post it on MakeWorld, for example, it'll include your color palette. If you use custom ones like I did, it'll include that so people can use that if they want. And I'm just going to click confirm, and then it will export, which might take a while. However, before it finishes, worth mentioning here, it says the model will appear black in Bambu Studio, and then you slice it to reveal the colors. This is how Hueforge works too. Like, it is just black, but it uses height range modifiers, so it applies different colors at different height ranges of the model. So once it's ready, this pops up and it says you can use it for commercial purposes, share them, put them on MakeWorld, whatever. and you can just add this disclaimer to say what you made it from. And then some tips here, like it's using the exact filament colors you selected, like the bamboo ones. If you use different materials or colors, then it might drastically change what it looks like. Obviously, you know that if you use a different color, it's going to look different. So if you don't have the exact colors or you don't have bamboo filament, you can just match it approximately, because I mean, most manufacturers make the same stuff anyway. But as you can tell from most of the mess in the background here, the filament mess, I have a lot of bamboo filament, so for me it's not a big problem. And again, it suggests for smoother color transitions and detail, 0.2mm nozzle is recommended, but if you don't have one, don't worry about it. Anyway, once you click download, it'll also download this to your computer, but if you're within Bambu Studio, it'll open the file as well. So it'll look like something like this. So as you can see, it's black. It looks a bit weird, doesn't look right. And it does apply a bunch of settings too, so you can see all the filaments are loaded in already, all the different colors. You can change them as well if you want to change them, so I can change the pink to a different pink. If you head to the Objects tab, you can see the model here, and you can see all the different colors applied to the different height ranges. So height range modifiers are one way to add colors to different parts of your model. You can also use them to add different strength or infill densities, for example. That's a separate topic. These are height ranges they're adding the different colors to. And another reason I chose this model is so that it would have more than 4 colors, which will be a common problem you will run into if you're using this Chroma Canvas. Like sometimes you might have a quite simple image where you just use one background, you don't add a foreground and midground, in which case it will only use 4 colors, and you won't have to worry about the fact that you only have one AMS, for example, or a printer that can't print more than 4 colors, such as the Snapmaker. But there is ways around this, and I'll talk about that, which is to use pauses in your printing, and then you can manually swap out the colors once they're finished. So the first 4 colors that we'll print will be black, gray, white, and blue. So if we slice it, we can then check out where the color transitions happen. So just to warn you, I don't think it's just my computer, but slicing these Chroma Canvas models takes ages. Like normally slicing should take like 10 seconds for a normal model, if that. But as you can see, it takes a long time for these. I think it's because of all the height range modifiers, and I think it's like essentially 100% infill, so it just takes a while to slice. As you can see, like generating walls, like each individual height range modifier will have wall counts and infill and all that, so it takes a while to slice. And it may also, well, it definitely will say floating regions detected, enable supports, but you can ignore that. Chroma Canvas tells you can ignore that too, so you don't have to worry about that. I think it's because it will look like it has lots of floating regions, but it's just because of the height range modifiers, I think. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
Oh my god, that took so long. But it eventually finished, and this is what the slice preview looks like. So remove that. It does say the warning about slicing could be slow because there's so many triangles. Ignore that. And also ignore the floating regions argument. That can go away. But you can see this is roughly what it would look like, which may or may not be up to the standard you want, but I think it does look pretty good. Obviously the white blending with the grey might look a bit weird, but they usually do look better after printing. It's just hard to visualize the blending in the slice preview, but it's going to take 5 hours. You can see the colors are pretty good. It matches pretty well, I think. So, as I was saying, if you don't have enough AMS systems or similar multi-material units, then you will have to add pauses and manually change filaments. So after the first 4 colors are printed, so we scroll down the green bar on the side. So we're looking for where yellow is printed first, which is there. So this is the first layer with yellow. So add a pause there. And when that happens, you can swap one of the colors that aren't going to be used again. A bit of advice when you're doing Chroma Canvas, just don't swap black and whites. You're probably going to use them later on. As you can see here, they're used later on, especially white by the looks of it. So always keep them. So the other 2 colors you're using should be the ones you swap typically. And another piece of advice is, depending on which printer you're using, you might not be able to swap the color which is just printed and is still in the tool head. So on the P1S, you can't. It just won't let go of the filament no matter what you do. Whereas you can on the A1, you can manually unload during a pause. So just check if that's something you can do. So in this case, I wouldn't swap the blue to yellow because the blue was the previous color that just loaded. So I'd swap gray, in this case, to the yellow at this pause. And then next we're looking for purple and pink. So purple would be there. That's the first layer with purple on it. And then pink is straight after too. So at the first pause, swap gray to yellow. And then the second pause, swap blue to purple or pink. And then swap yellow to pink. And then the other key thing is mapping the filaments correctly when you send them. So If you only have one AMS, it will just auto map the excess filaments to something. Just make sure you assign them to the same thing. So make sure you assign yellow to print out the same slot that gray is in, and pink to do the same, and then make sure purple is printing out of the fourth slot, which has the blue in it. It's a bit confusing, but it makes more sense when you're doing it yourself. And now you've added the pauses, you can't print yet, you have to slice it again. But because it's already sliced everything else, it's just the pauses being added. It won't take 400 years this time. It'll be quick, it just has to do the layered printing. One weird glitch I've seen, I don't know if there's a Bambu Studio thing or just a slicer in general. Now if you scroll down to your pauses, they're saying this is the yellow, but that's not the right shade of yellow, right? If you scroll up one, you can see it is the right shade. This is just a glitch though, it does do it properly. The pause happens and the colors are correct. It's just once you've added a pause, it makes everything look like a lighter color. Anyway, that's just a separate point. So now you can print it. So black to black, gray, if you had gray, assign it to gray, but I don't have gray loaded. So then blue stuff. So as I said, you would assign yellow to the same one gray is in, and assign purple to the same one blue is in, and also pink to the same one yellow is in. It makes more sense when you're doing it yourself. Just to warn you, make sure you assign them all to the right thing, because the auto assignment will just choose random stuff. As you can see here, because I don't have colors loaded in. And then you can click print and make sure you swap the colors, and then all should be good. So I didn't print this exact one. I printed a different one when I initially made it. I think the color selection on this one would have been better, but the one I printed initially looks like this. I think it looks pretty good. I didn't separate the eyes or add the yellow, so I think that's why it looks weird. It's just blue and pink and then the gray background. This is the kind of thing you can expect. It looks pretty cool. And you can see how thin the back is. It's like the 0.6 millimeters, which, you know, it's not going to break because it's flexible. But just so you know, in case you wanted to increase the thickness of that, just bear in mind if you increase the thickness of the back plate, everything will increase in thickness. If you're using any frames you want to put them in, then you have to bear that in mind so there's enough space for it to fit in. And speaking of frames, I mentioned I made two types of frames. One of them is like this, which is like a picture frame, so it can stand up on its own. And it has a magnetic lid with 6 magnets, so 3 on each side. And you can just slide your artwork in like that and put the magnet on. And now you've got a cool frame for your Chroma Canvas 3D artwork, which is really cool. The one I prefer using instead though, because for space and decoration, is the wall version. So it's the same thing with the magnetic top. This one attaches to the wall. So it has slots in the back for drawing pins or push pins, whatever you call them. You could also use screws or whatever you want to hang on the wall with. And I think this is a cool one to make artwork. It's like cheap and easier version of like Displate, in my opinion. And this is a really cool way to display them too. And the models for these, so the frames will be, well, by the time you see this video, they will be on my Maker World, so you can download them for free. I will also upload some of the models of these I've made. So you've seen the Greninja here, I showed earlier in the intro, this Charmander, which is pretty cool, but I've printed a bunch of them, so I think I'll upload them just so other people can enjoy them for free, obviously. I don't want any money for it. They are for you to enjoy. I've made them using a free software, so I'm not going to charge you. Hopefully now you have all the knowledge you need to make your own really cool models using Chroma Canvas. If you found this useful, then let me know in the comments below, and also let me know what model you're going to make first using this software. And whilst you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my new videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!